Today I'll be showing you how you can counter vehicle formations. Now the only reason vehicle formations are popular is because of the renegade Lan Qing. So Lan Qing has a skill called Heavy Cannonade that does a ton of damage to opponents when used with a full vehicle march. And this is why vehicle marches are becoming really popular these days. And so I'm going to show you a report where I attack an opponent using a full vehicle march with a normal formation and how badly I lose. And then I'm going to show you another report where I attack them with a special formation and how I actually win that battle quite easily. But first I want to talk about this Heavy Cannonade skill that is the main skill that is responsible for making vehicles really strong. If you read the description of this skill, it says that it deals 1 general damage on 4 random enemy crew member classes. When they say random enemy crew member classes, what they're talking about are the different types and different tiers of enemy troops. So for example, T1 bulkers are one class, T2 bulkers are another class, and T2 bikers are another class. So from T1 to T10 troops, you can have 40 different classes. What Lan Qing's skill does is it picks 4 random classes from the opponent's march and then deals 1 general damage to those classes every time the skill is triggered. And our main goal with countering the vehicle formation is going to be to counter this skill. Now, if you want to figure out the counter formation yourself, you can pause the video right here and read the skill description and try to come up with a formation that counters this skill based on its description. If you don't want to do that, then you can continue watching the video because I'm going to show you the formation right now. But first, I'd like to thank all of my patrons for the support. You can find my Patreon link in the description. So earlier when I said that it picks 4 random enemy crew member classes and then deals 1 general damage to each class, that means it deals 4 general damage every single round that it is triggered. However, what if you don't have 4 classes in your march? Instead, what if you only have 3 classes? Well, in that case, it's going to attack all 3 of your classes, but this time it's only going to deal 3 general damage instead of 4. And so now you've suddenly reduced the skill's effectiveness by 25%. What if you only have 2 classes in your march? Well, then you've reduced the efficiency of the skill by another 25% because you're only doing 2 general damage now. And what if you only use 1 class of troops? Well, in that case, the skill will only do 1 general damage every time it is triggered, and so its efficiency is going to go down significantly. And that's exactly what you need to do to counter these vehicle formations. Now the question is, which troop type should you use when countering vehicle formations? Well, that depends on your stats. If your stats are optimized for bikers, then you should be using bikers. If your stats are optimized for shooters, then you should be using shooters. If they're optimized for bulkers, then you should be using offensive bulkers. So here's a report where I attacked an opponent that was using a full vehicle march. They were using a lot of T10 vehicles and then a few vehicles of all other tiers. I first attacked them with a normal march and ended up losing more than 500,000 power. And if you look at their kills, most of their kills were coming from renegades. Over 200,000 kills came from renegades while only 28,000 came from their vehicles. If you look at their skills, they were killing about 3,400 T8 bikers, 2,800 T9 bikers, and 2,000 T7 bulkers, so I was losing almost 10,000 troops every time the Heavy Cannonade skill was triggered. And this was the main reason why I lost so much power. A minute later, however, I tried a different formation and this is what the report looked like. This time I won by over 400,000 power with the exact same stats. Let's take a look at my formation. In my formation, I only used tier 9 bikers along with 1 troop from each class, while the opponent's formation still remained the same. This time, however, Lan Qing wasn't able to do a lot of damage because she was only able to attack my T9 bikers every single round. So instead of losing 10,000 troops per round this time, I was only losing about 3,000. And the vehicles, as usual, ended up doing very little damage and only got 38,000 kills, so I ended up winning this battle. Then I was attacked again with the same formation, and I ended up winning again. And then I was attacked with a bulker plus vehicle formation and still managed to win. The reason I won with the bulker plus vehicle formation is because for bikers, most of their damage comes from charge attacks, and charge attacks always target ranged troops first, so adding tier 10 bulkers didn't really protect the opponent's vehicles from my charge attacks. As you can see, my opponent only lost 13,000 tier 10 bulkers while losing 70,000 tier 10 vehicles, which means most of my damage was coming from charge attacks. Also, adding a lot of tier 10 bulkers to your march makes Lan Qing's skill really weak, so this time I was only losing about 1800 troops every time Lan Qing's skill was triggered. Here's another example of me going against a player that was using a full vehicle formation. The first report is of me using a normal formation against them, where I obviously lost. You can also see the crazy amount of kills that Lan Qing got in this battle. In this battle, the power difference was close to 500,000, so I was clearly losing. However, the second time I attacked them, I did so using all bikers, and this caused me to significantly reduce the power gap to about 50,000. If you look at Lan Qing's kills in this battle, they're significantly less compared to the previous one. So these were a few examples of how you can counter a full vehicle formation. However, there is another formation that can get quite annoying, which is to mix vehicles with shooters or bikers, like in this case. So here you can see that I was using a full biker formation while my opponent was using vehicles mixed with shooters. The reason why they were using shooters is because their stats are optimized for shooter attack. Since I previously managed to significantly reduce the effectiveness of their renegade skill, this time they tried doing more damage with their troops instead of doing damage with their renegade. So in this report you can see that the crew kills were over 200,000 while the renegade kills were only 16,000. This means that their shooters did most of the work in this battle instead of Lan Qing. Lan Qing was only killing about 2,000 troops per hit with her skill. Now the problem with this formation is that I wasn't able to counter this formation in spite of trying multiple times. I tried a lot of different setups and still couldn't beat this formation. However, I do have a setup in mind that I think can beat this formation, but I couldn't test it because I didn't have the troops or the renegade stats. The reason I'm not upgrading my renegades and their skills beyond level 1 is because I want to have them at level 1 to do more tests. However, if I did have higher level renegades and a lot of tier 10 vehicles, I would use the exact same formation that I was countering before. I'd use a full formation of tier 10 vehicles. Now since the opponent has mainly 3 classes of troops in their march, Lan Qing's skill would do a ton of damage in this case, and I'm sure she would get about 8 to 10,000 damage every single round. This would cause my opponent heavy casualties and I would most probably end up winning this battle. So if you decide to test this out in a battle, then be sure to let me know down below in the comments. The reason why it took me so long to make a video on how to counter these vehicle formations is because I wasn't really finding any vehicle formations in the real estate event. And even if I did find these vehicle formations, I would just end up beating them with my regular formation, so I never really got the chance to test different strategies against them. However, this time in the underground tournament, I managed to find a few vehicle formations and test out different formations against them to figure out what works and what doesn't, and this is what I figured out. So I hope you guys are able to use this in your own battles in the game, and if you do so, let me know the results in the comments down below. That's all I have for you guys. Thanks for watching.